Welcome back to Life Be Lifing. Today, I want to ask you a question. When your family thinks about you, who do they think you are? I'm not talking about your name or your age, but your role. Maybe you're the responsible one, the difficult one, the funny one, the quiet one, the successful one, the one everybody worries about. Have you ever noticed that families often describe people by the part they played instead of the person they are? The interesting thing is, most of us never chose those roles. We simply learned what our family needed from us. Every family is trying to survive something: stress, financial hardship, grief, addiction, abuse, mental illness, divorce, generational trauma. And as families try to survive, children adapt. Nobody gathers everyone together and says, "You be the hero, you be the scapegoat, you become invisible." It happens naturally. Children begin noticing what the family needs: who gets attention, who gets blamed, who gets praised, who gets ignored. Little by little, a role begins to form. Eventually, the role becomes so familiar that people stop seeing the individual behind it. Let's start with the first role, the golden child. This child often becomes the family's source of pride: the straight A student, the athlete, the responsible one, the child everyone compares the others to. People often assume this role is easy, but behind the compliments is pressure. Pressure to perform, pressure to succeed, pressure to never disappoint. The golden child often learns, as long as I achieve, I'll be accepted. And that's a heavy burden for anyone to carry. Then there's the scapegoat. If something goes wrong, people somehow find a way to blame them. Arguments become their fault. Family tension becomes their fault. Even problems that existed long before they were born somehow get connected to them. Sometimes the scapegoat isn't carrying the family's problems. They're carrying the family's refusal to face them. When someone has to absorb everyone's frustration, healing becomes almost impossible. Now let's talk about the black sheep. People often confuse the black sheep with the scapegoat. Sometimes they're the same person, but not always. The black sheep isn't necessarily blamed for everything. They're often the person who simply doesn't fit. Maybe they ask questions no one else asks. Maybe they challenge unhealthy traditions. Maybe they marry someone the family doesn't approve of. Maybe they choose a different career, a different faith, a different lifestyle. Or maybe they're the first person to say, "This isn't healthy anymore." Families sometimes mistake honesty for disrespect, growth for rebellion, boundaries for betrayal. The black sheep often becomes the truth teller, and truth can make people uncomfortable. Not because it's wrong, but because it challenges what everyone has learned to accept. One of the hardest parts about being the black sheep is grieving the idea of the family you hoped you would have. You may still love your family deeply, but you can also recognize that loving them shouldn't require losing yourself. Then we have the hero. This is the child who tries to make everything better. They work hard, achieve more, take on responsibilities beyond their years. Everyone depends on them, people admire them. But underneath all that success is often someone who believes rest isn't earned until everyone else is okay. The hero doesn't always know how to stop carrying people because they've been carrying people for most of their life. The lost child often goes unnoticed. They're quiet, independent. They don't ask for much. Not because they don't have needs, because they've learned their needs probably won't be met anyway. So they disappear into books, music, video games, their imagination, or simply their own world. People often describe them as easy, but sometimes they're unseen. Now every family has someone who knows how to lighten the mood. The mascot becomes the comedian, the entertainer, the one who makes everyone laugh after an argument. Humor becomes protection. If everyone is laughing, maybe nobody notices the pain. The problem is, the person making everyone smile often has nowhere safe to put their own sadness. Then there's the caretaker, the child who becomes emotionally responsible for everyone else: checking on mom, comforting dad, raising younger siblings, keeping the peace, listening to problems no child should have to carry. People often call them mature, responsible, selfless, but children shouldn't have to earn adulthood before they've had the chance to experience childhood. Here's something I hope every listener hears today. These roles helped your family function, but they were never supposed to become your identity. Maybe you were the golden child. Maybe you were the hero. Maybe you were the caretaker. Maybe you were the lost child. Maybe you were the mascot. Maybe you were the scapegoat. Or maybe you were the black sheep, the one who didn't fit because you refused to become someone you weren't. Whatever role you played, it helped the family system survive. But it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. Healing often begins when we stop asking, "Who did my family need me to be?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming now?" You're allowed to grow beyond the role. You're allowed to disappoint expectations that no longer serve you. You're allowed to become someone your family has never seen before. Because you were created to be a person, not a position in a family system. Before we finish today, I'd like to leave you with this question. If your family stopped expecting you to play your role tomorrow, who would you become? Think about that this week. Write about it. Pray about it. Talk about it with someone you trust. Because sometimes the greatest freedom isn't leaving your family, it's leaving the role you thought you had to play. Thank you for joining me today.